Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So I welcome everyone once again to the continuation of our Gita sessions. So today we are going to study from the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. So as we have been doing the series. This is based on Sripad Ramanujacharya and Sripad Yamunacharya's commentary on Gita, on Bhagavad Gita. So Yamunacharya is not exactly a commentary. He has just written about 32 verses, which is called Gita Artha Sangraha, and Ramanujacharya has written a detailed commentary. So that is basically what we are studying. Right. So we will start by looking at this verse of Yamunacharya. So just give me a second. Due to this delay, one second. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So Yamunacharya has summarized every chapter of Bhagavad Gita in one verse, and these summaries are quite beautiful. So we start with that verse as always. This is verse number 10 from his book called Gita Artha Sangraha, which is on the screen. Verse number 10. Yoga Abhyasa Vidhi Yogi Chaturda Yoga Sadhanam Yoga Siddhi Swayogasya Paramyam Shashta Uchyate. So he says that in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking about 5 themes. Yoga Abhyasa. Yoga Abhyasa means how to do yoga, which is the first 28 verses of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, then Yogi Chaturda, 4 levels of yogis, 4 achievements of yogis. This is from 29 to 32. Yoga Sadhanam. Yoga Sadhanam means how to do yoga, which is basically that Abhyasa and Vairagya, which Krishna speaks between 33 and 36. Yoga Siddhi. Yoga Siddhi means how to achieve success as a yogi, which Krishna speaks from 37 to 46, where he talks about the yogi taking the next life and so on. And Yogasya Paramyam. Yogasya Paramyam means the topmost yogi, which is Yoginam api sarvesham madgater antaratmana. So that part. Okay, so this is how Sripad Yamunacharya summarizes the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so today we are going to see Yoga Abhyasa Vidhi, the way to do yoga. Okay, so that is the topic for today. Now in that also there is a subdivision. The first 9 verses are by and large a summary of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So last time we have already discussed first 4 verses. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti asa sannyasi cha yogi cha niragmirna chakriya. So we started with this and we did the first 4. Such a beautiful verse. If you just read this verse again and again, we just fall in love with the language, the way of expression. So Krishna is saying, sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. So sannyasi means jnana yogi and yogi here means karma yogi. So Krishna is saying that one who is acting in the world anashrita, that means Nishkama Karma Yoga, with that platform, a person who is working, that person, sa sannyasi cha yogi cha, so he gets the benefit of both. So because Krishna has been speaking this theme in chapter 3, 4, 5, right? How Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga are to be integrated. Okay, so it is integrated because one does Nishkama Karma Yoga and with knowledge. So all this we have seen in the past 3 chapters when we discussed. Okay, so the same concept Krishna is speaking in the opening part of the 6th chapter by reminding all of us that this is the qualification. This is what Krishna is expecting us to come up to, where he is expecting us to integrate Karma and Jnana Yoga. And as we are going to see today, this Ashtanga Yoga which Krishna is speaking in this chapter, this Yoga Abhyasa, this is for that Karma Yogi. Okay, so the same Karma Yogi whom Krishna has been speaking from chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, now Krishna is going to give a sadhana for that person by telling him that now he has to do this yoga sadhana. And what is that yoga sadhana? We are going to see today. And also we will be seeing how this applies to devotees as well. So this is the theme for today. Okay, so we are now in text number 5. So this is where we are. So we'll start from that. So the point is how to rise to the platform of a yogi. If you ask the question, how to become a yogi, Okay, then the answer is it is the mind whose help we need to become a yogi, and it is the mind who can stop us from becoming a yogi. Okay, so this is going to be answered in 5 and 6. So please remember that all these verses are going to apply not only to the Ashtanga Yogi, but also to the Bhakta, whom Krishna is going to describe from chapter 7 onwards. Okay, so for them also, all this is going to apply. The idea here is, so let's start with reading the 5th verse. Uddaretmat manatmanam natmanam avasadayet atme hyatmana bandhurat atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So this is the 5th verse. So interestingly, in this verse, 8 times the word atma comes. And if you read the translation, okay, so I'm using Prabhupada's translation. Prabhupada says, text number 5, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Okay, so in this verse, 8 times the word Atma is coming, and 4 times Atma is referring to the Atma, the soul, and 4 times it is referring to the mind. Okay, so this you can see in Prabhupada's word to word also. So the Atma is sometimes the mind and sometimes it's the Atma itself. And that is how Ramanujacharya also translates. I think pretty much all acharyas are referring to the same way of translating this particular verse, because I could see no difference between Ramanujacharya's translation, which I had, and also this translation. Right. So both of them, the word to word, 4 times they're using the word Atma for Atma, the soul, and 4 times Atma for the mind. Okay. But more importantly, what this verse is teaching us, this particular verse, what it is teaching us, Ramanujacharya, in his commentary, he says that there is no one else who can be your friend to uplift you in yoga, and there is no one else who can be your enemy also to degrade you in the path of yoga. So that is the point. So what Ramanujacharya says is that somebody can be your friend in this world to help you earn money. Okay, so he can be your friend. Somebody can be your friend to give you a job opportunity, so on and so forth. And somebody can be an enemy by stopping you from earning money and so on and so forth. But he says, as far as spiritual growth is concerned, nothing is hindering us. No external force can hinder us on our spiritual progress of yoga except our mind. And nobody can be our as best friend except our mind. So that is the purport of this particular verse, which is really worth contemplating on, because what we are going to understand here, what we understand here is that it's the mind alone that is our friend and our enemy, and there is nothing else. So we cannot blame any other situation. So, we can recall Prabhupada's conversation with Saraswati Thakur and everything, that British are ruling, this political battle is going on. So all that is there, yes. But they can't be your friend or enemy in terms of your spiritual progress. So under any situation, one can progress on the path of yoga. This is what Krishna is saying here. Now going ahead, so the same concept is elaborated in text number 6. Bandhuratmat manastasya yenatmena atmana jitha anatmanastu shastrutve vartetatneva shatruvat. So the same concept is elaborated, where Krishna is saying in text 6, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Okay, so the same point has been elaborated further here. And there is this Vishnu Puran verse, which is very famous. Maneva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshaye bandaya vishaya sangi mukti nirvishayam manaha. This is spoken by Parashara Muni. It's quoted by Prabhupada also several times. Ramanujacharya also quotes this in this context. So what he says is that one needs determination to stop the mind from going here and there and stay focused on the path of yoga. Okay, so whether it is Dhyana Yoga or whether it is our chanting, it is our mind alone which can be our friend and can be our enemy. So I was reminded a lot of Gurujan Prabhu's writings on the mind, where he asks all the devotees to just focus on the current mantra that one is chanting. Tell the mind that, okay, so many mantras I have chanted, they are all gone. I have not concentrated at that time, but this current mantra, let me focus on. So this is what we need to tell our mind. And again, the mind can be our greatest enemy also, because it can pull us down completely into sense gratification, materialism, and so on. Right. So this is how these two verses are. Very uniform translation between Prabhupada and Ramanujacharya. Both of them are saying the same thing here. I'm moving ahead now. What are the qualifications to start yoga is mentioned in the next few verses. So we are going to see a lot of verses today, till almost 28 we are going to see. But But I'm going to focus only on some salient points of the verses which are unique in Ramanujacharya's commentary. I hope and assume that everyone has read Srila Prabhupada's commentary, so you exactly know what he's saying in this context. So in the 7th verse, Krishna says, Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahitaha shitoshna sukha dukkeshu tata manapamanayoho. Okay, so here there is a slight difference in the translation. Prabhupada translates Paramatma as Paramatma. Okay, Ramanujacharya translates Paramatma as Atma. So he's saying Paramatma means he's splitting the words Param and Atma to say that one should be situated in the mind completely. Okay, so please try to understand. The Ramanujacharya's explanation comes from the fact that this particular chapter, it focuses on meditation on the Atma itself. Okay, so please try to understand. As you go ahead, you will see in the verses. Krishna is essentially speaking here in this chapter of Dhyana Yoga, meditation on the person, on the Atma. That means the person sits and meditates on himself. So this is how, please remember, even Patanjali describes in the Yoga Sutra. I had done this course on Patanjali Yoga Sutra with Nimai Lila Prabhu from GV some time ago. So when we went verse by verse, we realized that Patanjali also, the Yoga Sutras which are there, the Dhyana Yoga, they are talking from the perspective of a person sitting and meditating on himself. Okay, so now this is not something that devotees wish to do. We wish to meditate on Krishna. So just like, we see that in the Krishna book also, when Krishna, when it is mentioned that Krishna daily morning is to get up and sit and meditate on himself, Prabhupada writes that, but we are supposed to meditate on Krishna because as devotees, we want to do that. But at least we need to understand that in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is speaking about the dhyana, because here bhakti has not yet come. If a person is already meditating on Krishna, then he's already a devotee, right? So Krishna is talking about a person meditating on himself, sitting and meditating on himself. So here basically, Jitatmana Prashantasya. So the point, Ramanujacharya gives a very nice purport. He says that one should have control over the mind and not fall prey to mana, apamana, shita, ushna. That means all the dualities, one should not fall prey. And also he interestingly says one should not become angry. Okay, so that is the purport he gives here, mainly Ramanujacharya. He says that one should not fall prey to anger. Then he defines also what does it mean by falling prey to anger. It's a very nice definition. He says, if you think that you can become angry and accomplish something and still you don't become angry, that is to be appreciated. Okay, so the point what he says is, if someone is becoming angry and by that anger nothing is accomplished, then his anger has no meaning only. But if there is somebody who is powerful enough and who by becoming angry can get something done, but even he decides I will not get provoked and become angry, then he says that is the eligibility for yoga. So that is how he's translating this verse. And he says, such a person, jitatmana prashantasya. Prashanta means he's become now sober. Such a person, samahitah, param atma samahitah. He becomes perfectly situated in the Atma. So that is how he translates this verse. Anyway, it's a different translation, but that's fine. However you wish to look at it, as we have discussed many times before, so many times, many acharyas give different explanations to these verses, but they can all be reconciled because there is really no contradiction when you see that the Gita verses are like a jewel which can be explained in many ways. Yeah. So, because Prabhupada is talking about Paramatma here as Paramatma, it is likely that some other acharyas have used that context only. Because if you see carefully, many acharyas in the past have translated words also very differently in the Gita. So, which is normal, right? As long as the purpose is being maintained. Now, let's go ahead quickly. Okay, now this is 8th verse. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriya Yukta Ityuchate Yogi Samaloshtrasma Kanchanaha. So, these are all eligibility for yoga. Please remember. Who can do yoga? Krishna is saying. So one qualification, he already said that you should not become angry. You should have control on your mind. That means you should have control over the lower natures. Second, and of course, please remember, the previous conditions are all applying. Nishkama Karma Yoga, you should be perfectly situated in. That condition applies only. Besides that condition, additional conditions are being put by Krishna now. And in this verse, Krishna is saying, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. I'm just reading Prabhupada's translation. This is same. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called as a yogi when he is fully satisfied by virtue of knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendent self-control. He sees everything, pebble, stone, or gold as the same. Okay, so this is the main part of the verse. Samaloshrasma kanchanana. He sees pebble, stone, and gold as same. Ramanujacharya only one thing he says, which is very interesting, which is related to certain facts of those times. This word kutasto. He says, right, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma, Krishna is saying, Kutasto Vijitendriya. If you look at that word, there is this word called as Kutasto. So Kutastha has many meanings. One means spiritually situated, which is Prabhupada's word to word translation. Ramanujacharya says Kutam, it seems in Sanskrit, is a stone which is used by blacksmith when he makes his various utensils. Okay, so nowadays we may not actually observe blacksmith doing their work, but you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, such examples do come up which are related to a traditional society. So it seems this blacksmith has a stone which he uses as a base, and on that base he keeps the metal, and he will make a plate, a cup, different things he makes on that kuta, on that stone. Okay, so the point Ramanujacharya says here is that this particular kutam is like the Atma, because the stone of the blacksmith does not change. Only the vessel which is being made on the kutam keeps changing, correct? So kutastha means, it means spiritually situated. Prabhupada's translation is what it is, spiritually situated, but the elaboration, because somebody may say kutastha ko Prabhupada ne translate as spiritually situated. So how spiritually situated? So we can understand this from this explanation of Ramanujacharya, where he's saying that Kutastha means just like be like the stone of the blacksmith, where different utensils the blacksmith is hammering and creating them. Those utensils are changing their forms, but the Kutastha is not changing the form. Okay, that means the stone is not changing the form. It is only the external things. I mean, the body is going on changing, but the Atma is same and steady. So that is why Kutastha is situated in the self. Okay, so many times, many of these words in the Bhagavad Gita, they have such a connection to, you know, certain items in traditional society, you know, like that of the blacksmith. Okay, anyway, but now Krishna, he goes on in 6.9, and this is a beautiful verse. He is giving an advanced qualification for yoga. So in 6.8, Krishna said, look at stone, gold, everything same, which is relatively easier. But the next verse is even more difficult. We will spend some time on this verse, beautiful verse. Krishna is saying, Suhrin Mitra Rudasina Madhyastha Tvesha Bandhusu Sadhu Shvapisha Papeshu Samabuddhir Vishishyate. Okay, so I'll just read the translation first. A person is considered further advanced when he considers honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, envious friend and enemies, pious and sinners, all with an equal mind. Okay, so here Ramanujacharya is given word-to-word explanation for each of these. Okay, so let's go in the Sanskrit. Suhrit. So who is a Suhrit? So these are beautiful definitions. These are based on the Sanskrit language and grammar and so on. So Suhrit, he says, is a person who wishes well for us, and age is not a botheration. I mean, Suhrit is a well-wisher. He is our well-wisher, and age is not a botheration. That means he can be elder than us, he can be younger than us, but he can be Suhrit. Okay, so that is Suhrit. So Suhrit means a well-wisher who may have who is of a different age than us. Then Mitra. Mitra means same age person who wishes well for us. That is Mitra. Okay, so there is a difference between Suhrit and Mitra. Mitra means typically like your classmates in school, college, etc. They may be Mitra, same age, and let us say they wish well for you, then that is Mitra. So just like, you know, Prabhupada, when he says you are ever well-wisher, that is like Suhrit actually. That is, age is not a factor here. He is much elder to us, but still he is wishing well for us. Ari, Suhir and Mitra, and the third word here is Ari. Ari means due to some reason he doesn't like me. That is Ari. Ari means he's an enemy, but not just any enemy. For some reason, there is some reason. And because of that, he doesn't like me. That is called as an Ari. Udasina. Udasina means he's neither angry on me nor he loves me, because there is no reason to be angry or love. That is Udasina. So Udasina means he neither despises me nor he is loving to me, and there is no reason for that, and that is why he's like that. Now, Madhyastha is a very interesting word. Madhyastha in Sanskrit means by habit, such a person is neutral to everybody. Okay, so please remember, Udasina and Madhyastha, there is a difference. It looks to be the same, but in Udasina, the person is not angry or loving because there is no reason to do so. Maybe if there is a reason, he may start being angry or he may love you. But Madhyastha, by habit only, is neutral to everybody. Har ek ke prati wo saman bhavna rakhta hai. That is Madhyastha. Bandhu. Bandhu means without reason he loves me. Okay, I mean there's no good reason, but still he loves me a lot. Okay, so maybe like our family members or even somebody maybe there, who loves us despite all our faults, without any reason they love us. That is Bandhu. Dvesha, Madhyastha Dvesha is also there. Na? Dvesha means without reason he doesn't like me. Okay, so please remember, Ari means he doesn't like me because there is some reason. Dveshi means he doesn't like me and there is no reason not to like me. Just like that, he doesn't like me. That is Dvesha. Okay, so it's a beautiful thing in Sanskrit vocabulary. So many of these words, they look very similar, but there are slightly different meanings in all of them. Sadhu, we all know, who is Dharmashila, and Papeshu means Adharmi. Okay, so 9 categories Krishna is speaking. And what is Krishna saying here? Krishna is saying Samabandhu Buddhir Vishishyate. Look at all of them equally. Oh my God, this is what Krishna is expecting us here. This is a qualification to practice yoga. And please remember, this is not only for the Ashtanga yogi, this is for all yogis, even a bhakta, this is a qualification. I mean, don't we see in the life of Haridas Thakur that he had all these qualifications, right? I mean, he was equal to everybody. Whoever, those Muslim fellow is beating him and all those. The stories we have heard in Chaitanya Bhagavat. So the point is, this is considered an eligibility for yoga. One has to have equal vision with all of this. Now, from where does this come? You may ask this question, from where does this come? So please remember, all this is already answered in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Because the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you remember in 5.18, we had seen equality, correct? And that equality comes from that 5th chapter, that whole concept of doing karma yoga, where you understand that it is the modes which is the doer and I am not doing anything. And to understand that everybody are like that. So that means if somebody is angry, shouting at me or whatever, it is the modes which is comprising in his body, which is of Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna, whatever reason, because of which he's shouting like a madman. But actually, he's also like me, only an Atma, which is just covered by a body and mind made of 3 modes, which make us do different things in this world. So this concept Krishna has already spoken in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, please remember. And that is where he had elaborated from 5.18 onwards, Samadrishti, right? Samadrishti, Krishna had elaborated a lot. Krishna is bringing the same point over here and elaborating that you must have Samadrishti as a qualification to do yoga. Okay, so this concept is not new, it is already there, but just that, it is appearing as if it is coming here with such detail for the first time. Okay, so if you have all this, then you are qualified to do the yoga process. Okay, so now we will go into the verses from 6.10 to 6.28. Krishna is going to speak about yoga, right? Just give me a second. Yeah, so now we will go into the yoga abhyasa, okay, the yoga abhyasa. So before I go into that, just some points here about the 6th chapter in itself. The difference between the 6th chapter and what we are going to see from the 7th chapter. So let's remember that yoga in the 6th chapter is about how to do, and bhakti is about why to do something. So this is a fundamental difference. So that's why you will see in this chapter, there is a lot of focus on the method of doing, how you sit, how you have to be clean. There is a lot of focus on how you do something. Okay, whereas generally in a devotee, for a bhakta, the focus is why to do something. Okay, so why the difference exists, because Prakriti, it looks at only how you are doing something and rewards and punishes, right? Like for example, whether one is eating prasadam or whether one is eating unoffered food. Okay, how you are eating will impact your body. If somebody eats at night, midnight, whether it is prasad or whether it is outside food, it is going to impact your body. So yoga is discipline oriented. So the whole focus is on the how part of it. And bhakti will teach us the why part of it. So generally the why is to be sitting on top of how. Okay, so it doesn't. So just like to give an example, like if somebody in the yoga paddhati, if you have to do Gayatri, for example, you have to face the sun and sit and do Gayatri. That's the rule in the yoga paddhati in general. So most of us may be knowing that. In the morning, one faces the east, and in the evening, one faces the west. That is where the sun is rising and setting. So that is how it emphasizes. The how is there. Okay. But as a bhakta, the focus is on why I'm chanting the Gayatri and focusing on that. Sometimes as a devotee, we may ignore the how part, but there is no harm following that as well, because this how part is a lifestyle that defines our discipline. And so that's why it's always good to be sitting on top of the how part, right? So all these scriptures, whether it is yoga, whether it is, Vastu, astrology, these are all rule centric. Devotion is love centric. Okay, so that is why as devotees, sometimes when we read these verses, which we are going to read now onwards, which are all focusing on the how part of it, we may think that array, too many rules are being said over here. But we need to appreciate that this is how yoga is. And why not? Even Srila Prabhupada, for example, we hear during Japa, the talk, the most famous intervention of Srila Prabhupada is sit properly, correct? So sit properly is the focusing on the how part. Certainly one can even sleep and chant also. There is no problem. Okay. As in Tatrarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kala. Maybe if somebody is sick, one may lie down and chant. But otherwise, one is supposed to follow the how part. Okay. So even so in everything in our scriptures, the how part is emphasized. Like for example, even for studying. Though some of you may know this, there are rules for studying, when to study, when not to study, when to revise. Like if you go to any traditional Gurukul, they follow all these rules. Like for example, on Amavasya, they don't study. They may do some other task like cleaning the Gurukul, cutting the firewood, so on. On some days, so these days are called as Anadhyayan Kala. Anadhyayan means Adhyayan is not done. On some days, revision is done. Some days, new topic is started. So this is all the how part. So all these things are emphasized because you're just aligning yourself with Prakriti so that you can, maximize your output. Okay, so this is yoga, because yoga means harmony, balance, and discipline. So this is what we are going to see in these particular verses. Okay, so I'm just saying that upfront because when we see all these rules being said, we may wonder how does this figure. So we will take it like that. So now onwards, so let's go into the yoga abhyasa part from the 10th verse. So 10th verse, Krishna saying, Yogi unjita satatam atmanam rahasya stitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashir aparigraha. So from this verse onwards, the yogi description of how to do yoga starts. So please pay attention. The transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relation with the Supreme. He should live in a secluded place and always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Okay. So Ramanujacharya, he says that yogi yunjita, Ramanuja translates as meditate on Atma. Okay, satatam means always. Okay, so one may ask, how can the karma yogi always do this? Because we always know satatam. Krishna is saying here satatam. Somebody may say, "Arey, karma yogi means he has a varnashram duty, na? He has something to do. He has some occupation. He's a kshatriya, he's a brahmana, whatever." So he says there has to be a time devoted for dhyana yoga, and at that time one does it satatam. Okay, so the word satatam, Ramanujacharya says you should see it more flexibly. Not literally in this context like a devotee, later it comes about a devotee, satatam, always thinking about Krishna. So Ramanujacharya says here it is not like that. Here Krishna is talking about a yogi. Yogi means the karma yogi who is now doing jnana yoga. So typically he says such people would do it for 1.5 to 2 hours during the Brahma Muhurta time. When that's satatam. So that is also called satatam only. So 1.5 to 2 hours, let us say between 5 to 6:30 or whatever, one sits and tries to do this type of a meditation, then that is also considered satatam, because satatam here, the meaning of satatam here becomes every day for that fixed period of time, you are going to sit and meditate. And where are you going to sit? Rahasi stitaha, sit in a secluded place. Sit in a secluded place where is no sound. Ekaki, be alone. Advitiya, without another person, and think only about Atma. Yata chittatma, think only about the Atma. So this is how he is translating this verse. Nirashi, without any desires. Apparigraha. Apparigraha means give up the mamata mentality. Mamata means this is mine, this is mine. Ye mera hai, ye sab chhod do. At least when you are meditating, those 2 hours. Okay, so I felt that, so as devotees, we may certainly not sit like this for 1.5 hours and meditate on oneself. But these principles are used by devotees to even their chanting, etc. So, most of us, we are not so used to having such a private, secluded place for our japa, etc. But sometimes when I think about it, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a room with thick walls to, where he would sit and chant, or Sanatan Goswami, he made a hole in the ground in Vrindavan. He would go underneath. Jiva Goswami or Sanatan Goswami, I forgot one of them. they would go under the ground and sit and chant. So when you hear all this, you understand that they also implemented these principles, right? Rahasi stitaha, in a secluded place. Ekaki, sitting alone. And then they were, of course, they were not meditating on themselves, they were meditating on the holy name. But all the principles are the same. Okay, so please try to appreciate all the principles are same. Though here Krishna is talking about the person who is meditating on himself. Okay, Yata Chittatma, he's talking about that. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's try to appreciate. So please remember that in these verses, Krishna is literally not, at least as per Ramanacharya, not talking about going to the forest and meditating. No. He's saying that this is for Karma Yogi. First 6 chapters are Karma Yoga. So here is not expecting that the person has gone to the forest. He's sitting at home only. He's a grihastha or whatever. He has his occupational duty. But daily for 1.5 to 2 hours, he does this type of meditation. This is how Ramanacharya is explaining this particular verse. Now let's go ahead. Text number 11. In 11, Krishna is talking about external environment needed. And in 12, he is talking about internal environment needed. Okay, Sucho Deshe Pratishtapya Sthiramasana Atmanaha Natyucharitam Nati Nicham Chaila Jinna Kushottaram. Okay, and I'll read the 12th also because the translation is together. Tatre Kagram Manakritva Yata Chittendriya Yakriyaha Upavishyasane Yujyan Yogam Atma Vishuddhe. Okay, so the translation of these 2 verses are as follows. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place, should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with deer skin and soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should sit on it firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling the mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Okay, so this is how these verses are described, right? So let's, so let's go one by one. 6.11. So this is the external, Bahya Upakaranam, external environment. So what are external points mentioned? Sucho Deshe. Sucho Deshe means, Ramanacharya says, Sucho Deshe means there should not be anything ashuddha around you when you are sitting. Like there should not be unwashed plates. Okay, so unwashed plates are considered ashuddha, juta plate. Or there should not be stool of any animal you're sitting there. Of course, cow dung is a different thing, but otherwise stool of any other animal should not be there. And it should not be in the house or land of atheist or adharmic people, because that is also considered asucha. So sucha means the place should belong to a dharmic person, preferably of the karma yogi himself, and it should be clean over there. Sthiram. So this word sthiram, sucho sthiram asanam. Sthiram. So Ramanacharya says sthiram means the ideal asan is of wood. So he says the asan should be such that it should be wood. And on top of the wood, there should be 3 things. Okay, what are the 3 things which Krishna is mentioning? Krishna is mentioning there should be darbha grass, deer skin, and silk cloth. Okay, so this is an ideal asana. Okay, so Ramanacharya says why these 3 things are mentioned. He says darbha grass is mentioned because it brings auspiciousness. So darbha is always kept. Those of you who have sat for marriages and all, sometimes you will know that the Panditji gives a darbha. Because darbha creates auspiciousness. That is darbha. Silk is for softness, and deer skin is to make the asan steady. Okay, so if you know anything about deer skin, the property of that is if you sit on deer skin, it becomes steady. It doesn't move around anywhere. So Ramanacharya says, ideally what you can do is on the wooden asan, you can have darbha lowest, and on top of that, you can keep the deer skin. And on top of the deer skin, you can keep a silk cloth so that it is soft. So Ramanacharya says, why has Krishna said so many things here? He said he has said so many things here because when you are sitting to practice dhyana, your asana should be very comfortable. It is for that reason he says that Krishna has mentioned all these things. Okay, it should not be too high, it should not be too low. Right, and Ramanacharya further says this asana which is there is not only for your sitting, but it can also be for your back. For your back. If you have seen in many traditional spiritual organizations, you know, for their gurus, they have an asana of wood where it is like a chair or a sofa kind of, where the base is also wood and the back rest is also wood. And on top of the wood, they keep this kusha grass, they keep the deer skin and a silken cloth. And the guru sits on that. I don't know whether you have had the opportunity to see it, but in various traditional mathas in India, you will see implementation of this verse where people have such asanas. And Ramanuja says that yes, the back can be comfortable, so you can sit and so the whole purpose he says is so that in your meditation you are not bothered that something is poking you and you're not steady or something. So external environment. So much has been said by Krishna on that. Then what is internal environment? In the 12th verse, Krishna is saying your mind and senses should be focused on meditation. All other thoughts should be out. That is internal environment. Okay, that means you're focused only on meditating on Atma. Okay, so as far as devotees are concerned, we can take this verse for our chanting if you wish to. So, sit in such a way, secluded place where nobody else will disturb and proper asana, and where you can completely focus, where you can draw the mind from everything and just focus on the holiness. So you can take it like that. There is absolutely no problem with that, right? Because the principles are the same, the discipline is the same. Right, let's go ahead. 6:13. Samam karya shiro grivam Darayan chalam stiraha samapreksha nasikagram swam disha 1 second. Samapreksha nasikagram swam disascha vanalokanam prashantatma vigatabir brahmachari vrate stitaha manas samyamya machitto yukta asita matparaha. So I've read 2 verses, 13 and 14. Go together. Some more description is there of yoga. The 13th verse, Krishna is saying, Kaya Shiro Grivam. Kaya Shiro Grivam means the body, the neck and head should be in line. Basically, that means sit properly. That is the sit properly explanation. Then Krishna is saying, Achalam, one shouldn't move. That means one shouldn't move his thighs and this and that too much. One should be steady. Stiram, back rest should be there. Okay, so ideally it can be there. And then Krishna is saying, Disha Chalanavalokanam. That means don't get distracted by different directions. That is actually the translation of this verse. You see this verse, Krishna is saying that don't look here and there. Okay. So that means one is just focused on the meditation on the self. Okay, so we'll also see the translation of the verses. Yeah, so here it is. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Okay, so here there is some interesting commentary. Okay, so 2 points. One thing is Brahmacharya Vrate. So Brahmacharya means what? So Ramanuja says that we were talking about Karma Yogi, and typically most Karma Yogis are married only, almost everyone. So what is the Brahmacharya Krishna is talking about here? So he says Brahmacharya means, so he has defined Brahmacharya like this. Brahmacharyam cha yoshitsu bhogyata buddhi varjanam. That means don't look at women as objects of enjoyment. That is considered Brahmacharya. Okay, so he says that be like Hanumanji, that even in Lanka, he saw so many women, but he did not see them as objects of enjoyment. So this is how he defines Brahmacharya as. So this kind of Brahmacharya is practiced even in marriage by a person, where other than one's mother, Matravat Paradareshu, one obeys, one follows this principle strictly. And even with one's wife, it is restricted. Okay, so this kind of Brahmacharya is being spoken about by Krishna here, as per Ramanuja. And then he also raises this question. Krishna is saying here, right, meditate on me within the heart. That comes here. In the 14th verse, if you see, Yukta Asita Mat Paraha, Krishna is saying, meditate on me. Ramana is saying, how come the Lord has come here? Because we have not still come to bhakti. This is Dhyana Yoga. So he says that even the Dhyana Yogi, he has to use bhakti as an aid to fulfill his purpose. Okay, so it is just like in all other paths, right? Even Karma Kand also, if you see in Karma Kand also, they will add some bhakti in it, right? Like you will see that even when they are doing some Ganesh Arati. In the Ganesh Arati, bhakti comes in. Krishna's holy name comes in. So similarly, every path needs to rely on bhakti for its progress. So he says this person has still not become a devotee yet, as in. So he does sometimes this meditation on the Lord so that he can cleanse his sins. Because Ramanujacharya says if he's going to meditate on himself, how will his sins go away? How will he progress? Okay, so though that is his ultimate goal is to meditate on himself only, the Dhyana Yogi, but time to time he also has to do some Paramatma meditation so that he can get cleansed of his sins. Okay, so that is why he says that in this section of Bhagavad Gita, though Krishna is speaking on meditating on himself, this part is not so much about the bhakta, it is about the Dhyana Yogi, who has not quote unquote become the Bhakta, who's going to become only the next chapter onwards, we are going to see about the Bhakta. So that is how he talks about it. But anyway, as far as devotees are concerned, we are happy meditating on the Lord and following all these processes. Okay, going ahead, right? So going ahead. Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi niyatamanasah shantim nirvana parama mat samstha madhigacchati. Okay, so here Krishna says, thus practicing constant control on the body, mind, and activities, with mind regulated, the person attains the highest kingdom of God by cessation of material existence. Okay, so in this verse also, Ramanuja makes the same comment. He says that, think about me. So here, if you see, there is this word, niyata manasaha. Niyata manasaha means yogi niyata manasaha. That means one should, with a regulated mind, one should think about me and bring the mind under control. So the point here he's saying is, it is just like we say sit and eat, right? Sit and eat means sitting is the prerequisite for eating. Similarly, he says here, to bring the mind under control, one should do some meditation on the Lord. Only then one can bring the mind under control. Okay, so that is why meditating on the Lord has come in these two verses, though it is not still the chapter of Bhakti Yoga. Because even such a yogi has to rely on bhakti in order to make progress on his path, right? So having spoken all this, then of course, Shanti Madhigacchati. So Shanti means what? So there is this whole verse that talks about Shanti means to become free from the Shadripu. That means the 6 whips of hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, birth, and death. Okay, so once you, so it is possible to do that only when one meditates on the Lord. So there are some advantages of meditating on the Lord, which is given to this Dhyana Yogi so that he can also achieve some benefits like these, which cannot happen simply by meditating on himself. Okay, so after having said all this, now Krishna says some more rules for the yogi. And these are some of the favorite verses of devotees. We have seen this many times before. Natyash natastu yogosti nachekanta manashnataha nachati swapnashilasya jagrato neva charjuna. Okay, 16th verse. So we discussed this verse so many times where Krishna is saying there is no possibility of one's becoming yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Okay, so now onwards Krishna is speaking about regulation during the daytime for the yogi. Okay, so please remember, till now in the last few verses we were seeing about what the yogi should do during the 2 hours when he's sitting to meditate. Now what we are seeing is after the meditation is over, during the remaining 22 hours, when he is leading his normal life, there are some principles he needs to follow so that next day morning when he sits for meditation, he can meditate nicely. And what are those principles? One principle is mentioned here, you should not eat too much, eat too little, sleep too much or sleep too little. So in this context, one Acharya, he gives a very interesting point. He says, let us look at Arjuna himself. So sometimes we hear Arjuna's name as Gudakesha, he conquered sleep. So sometimes, so there is one perspective also that one should not look at such words too literally. Gudakesha, yes, it means conquered sleep. What it means is Arjuna, when he had to practice archery in his younger days, he would sacrifice his sleep and shoot arrows. Just like sometimes a person who is studying for some IIT JEE or NEET exam, he sacrifices his night sleep and he keeps studying long hours in the night. It doesn't mean that he doesn't sleep at all. Okay, so we see that Arjuna also on the 15th day of battle in Kurukshetra, when they had fought the whole night during when Ghatotkacha died, and the next day morning also they continued fighting. In the middle, Arjuna tells Krishna, everybody is very tired now. We all need to sleep. So Krishna then says yes, and there is a description in the Mahabharata where there is a break in the battle and everybody goes to sleep. The people on the elephant sleep on the elephant, those on the horses sleep on the horses, somebody sleeps on the ground, somebody sleeps on chariot, everybody take a break. Okay, so the fact is that yes, even all these yogis in the war, they also needed to sleep at the right time. Okay, so this is how you see this verse. So these 16 and 17 and the 17th verse also, which is most often quoted by our devotees, Yukta Ahara Viharasya Yukta Cheshtasya Karmasu Yukta Swapnava Bodhasya Yogo Bhavati Dukkha. So here Krishna is talking about play or exercise. That after Ahara there should be some Vihar also. That means some kind of entertainment, play, exercise, some yoga, some walk, right? Something should be there for everybody. And so basically these two verses are telling us that don't overdo anything or underdo anything. That is the principle here. okay, which is what we need to follow to be a yogi, which is so much applicable to a devotee as well. We can't work too much, we can't work less also. That is also a problem. Sometimes somebody thinks काम कम है तो भी problem है because the mind gets distracted here and there. Okay, so there needs to be, everything needs to be in the appropriate amount, and that is these verses. Okay, so in the next two verses now, Krishna is summarizing whatever we have spoken in terms of the result achieved by the yogi. Okay, so what are the results? Yada vinitam chittam atmanyevavatiष्ठते nisprah sarva kamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Okay, so this is verse number 18, where Krishna is saying, when the yogi, by practicing of yoga, discipline his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of material desires, he is supposed to be well established in yoga. Krishna is saying, who is well situated in yoga? He must be situated in the Atma. So please remember, here transcendence is Atma actually. That is what is there in the verse. You see 18. Yada vinitam chittam atmanyevavatiष्ठते. Atmanyevavatiष्ठते means he is situated in the self. Situated in the self. So please remember, this whole section is talking in general about the dhyana yogi who is meditating on himself. Okay, nispraha sarva kamebhyo, and he is freed from all such desires, etc. Such a person. Okay, so this is so he is considered to have achieved something in yoga. Now in the next verse, Krishna is speaking an even more advanced stage of achievement, which is again a very beautiful verse, often quoted. Yata deepo nivatasto nengate sopamasprita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. Krishna here is giving the example of a lamp. Okay, he's saying, as a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains steady in his meditation on his self. Okay, so somebody may say, why is Krishna giving the example of a lamp? So Ramanujacharya says, Krishna would have given the example of a mountain also, but he's giving the example of a lamp because the lamp gives light as well. Okay, so the lamp is not only in a windless place, not moving, but it is also giving light. Similarly, he says the heart of the yogi, the consciousness of the yogi is such that not only it is not distracted to other things, but it is also emanating light, as in it is emanating that particular consciousness, the light of knowledge, that because of his meditation. So this is how the yogi is being described. And please remember, if you read as I said, if you read Patanjali Yoga Sutras sometime, you will see this type of meditation is discussed in great detail, how one meditates on the self. Because generally devotees, we don't read that because we are not interested in meditating on the self. But I'm using that to say that indeed in this chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about that particular type of yoga system, at least in the beginning part. In the end, he goes on to Yoginam Api Sarvesham. But here he's talking about that. Okay. Then again in the next 4 verses, 20 to 23, they're all one section only, where once again Krishna is talking about the fruits of self-realization. That is this section, fruits of self-realization. Yataro paramate chittam nirudham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati sukhamatyantikam yattad buddhigrahyam atindriyam veti yatra na chaivavam sthitas chalati tatvatah yam labdva chaparam labam manyante nadikam tatah yasmin sthitona dukkena gurunapi vichalyate tam vidya dukkha samyogam viyogam yoga samyitam. So these are all 4 verses in continuation, which are talking about fruits of self-realization. That means this person who is meditating on himself daily like this 1.5 hours, what does he get? Okay, so just by meditating on the self, what all you can get. So this is what it is. He can reach the perfection of trance or samadhi, where one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind. So please remember, such a person, because of his constant meditation on himself, he can see himself by the pure mind to relish and rejoice in the self. Okay, so Ramanujacharya gives an example. It is literally like deep sleep, he says, but there's a difference. In a deep sleep, it is tamasic, but the similarity is in deep sleep also, one is not at all aware of one's body, but one only knows that I am there, I am existing. So that means even in deep sleep, if you see carefully, there, because when we get up in the morning after deep sleep, most of the time we have swapna, that means we have a disturbed sleep with dreams. But if anybody experiences deep sleep and then one gets up, then one says that, oh, I slept very nicely. So there was an awareness that I existed. Okay. So even in a sleep, he says that when you try to understand the self, you feel very happy. What to speak of this state where one can see the self and one can rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless happiness, realized through senses, established thus one never departs from the truth. And upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. So Ramanujacharya says, Arey, how come we can say that there is no greater gain other than this? Because this person has not even become a devotee. So he says, till now, whatever we have seen from that perspective, there is no greater gain. Okay, so that means we are looking only from comparison of material things. That means in comparison with material success, this self-realization to achieve, there is no greater gain than this. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries from material contact. So the translation here is similar to Ramanuja, so I'm not elaborating any more on these verses. But the point we are seeing here is about the fruits of self-realization on this meditating on oneself, this method of meditation, which is being spoken in this particular chapter and elaborated in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Okay. So, so we could implement all this with our chanting, because it turns out that, again, we have to chant for 1.5 to 2 hours a day. So if we try to, as far as possible, follow these external, internal rules during the japa as well, we will benefit a lot. So this is how I think devotees should take this particular chapter. Right, now the last 3-4 verses only, and we will end soon. So because I just wanted to finish this section of Yoga Abhyasa. So look at verse number 24. Sa nischayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman styaktva sarvan asheshatah manasyasendriya gramam viniyamya samantatah. So this is now text number 24. So Krishna is saying here, one should engage oneself with the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all desires born out of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So Ramanuja plays a lot of importance on this word mana here. He says that this word mana here is the most important thing in this verse, because the role of the mind is again coming in. That it is with one's mind that one has to work hard to do this sankalpa. What is the sankalpa? Sankalpa means to think two different things to be same, as we said earlier. Body and mind, to think them same is sankalpa. So one has to give up that sankalpa. That I'm not the body, but I'm actually the Atma. So that is how one person meditates here. And senses have to be withdrawn from all objects by the mind, and the mind has to think of all the faults of this world. That is what you see here. So viniyamya samantatah, one has to think like that. So then Krishna goes on to say again, shane shane ruparamada buddhya dhriti grihitaya atmastam manakritva nakanchid api chintayet. Okay, in the 25th verse, Krishna is saying, gradually, step by step, one should become situated in transcendence by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should not think of anything else. Shanai, Shanai. So Ramanuja says Shanai because it takes time for the conditioned soul to come out of his bodily consciousness. So one should be patient with oneself also. And slowly, one should, over a period of time, come out of this tendency of wanting to enjoy the senses. That means buddhya dhrita grihitaya. That means with one's intelligence, with full conviction, slowly, one should come out of sense gratification and focus on the meditation process. Okay, and whenever it doesn't happen, whenever it goes away, what to do? Yato nischarati manaschanchalam astiram tatas tato niyam yetat atmanyeva vasham vayet. Again, this is a very common quoted shloka by devotees. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one should withdraw it and bring it under the control of self. Okay, so this applies to the japa as well, where our mind keeps going here and there, one has to bring it back. Okay, so he says here that the mind, controlling the mind is like, imagine you have a water in a bag and you cannot afford to have even a single hole in the bag. Suppose if somebody is carrying water in a bag, some type of a bag, there cannot be a single hole in it, whether it is a bottle, plastic bag, whatever bag. There cannot be a single hole, because if there is a single hole also, then the water will all go out of that hole. So similarly, Ramanujacharya says that if our mind, even if one small thing is there where your mind is going, that's it, you're gone. You cannot meditate only. So that is why he says yato yato nischarati. Wherever the mind goes, even one thing you should not allow to the mind during the meditation. When you're sitting for that meditation, Krishna is saying here that don't allow your mind to go even to one small thing, because one small hole also, everything is gone. And then one is, when the whole meditation only fails. So he says that one should bring it under the control of self. Okay, now the last two verses of this section. Prashanta manasam khenam yoginam sukham uttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutama kalmasham. Okay, and I'll read the 28th also, the last verse. Today we read a lot of verses. Generally we don't do so many, but this section I just want to do it in one go. Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vikata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. So we'll see 27, 28 and then conclude. So 27, Krishna is saying the yogi whose mind is fixed on me attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest perfection of perfect happiness in loving service to the Lord. So let's now go back to the verses and discuss more on the verses here. So if you see 27th verse, Prashanta Manasam Henam Yogina Sukham Uttamam. Krishna is saying that it's very simple. From the Sanskrit only you can understand, right? Prashanta Manasam, in this way, this particular mind, which is peacefully fixed, Prashanta Manasam, such a person, Sukham Uttamam, he achieves great happiness. Upaiti Shanta Rajasam. The Shanta Rajasam Ramanujacharya elaborates. He says Shanta Rajasam means रजोगुण को आपने शांत किया, पैसिफाई किया. So he says इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि रजोगुण को निकाल दिया. So he says शांत रजसम doesn't mean rajoguna has been completely removed. He says because if rajoguna is completely removed, this person after his meditation he has to do karma yoga na. So Ramanujacharya repeatedly takes us back to that theme, saying that this is about the karma yogi who is doing meditation in the morning for 2 hours. So shanta rajasam means he has to reduce his rajoguna so that he is not affected by sinful desires, etc. But some amount of rajoguna he certainly needs so that he can do his karma yoga, his daily activities later in life. But his rajasa must be under check. It must be under control. That means he cannot be overly lusty and overly controlled by the mode of passion. Then he cannot do yoga. Brahma bhutama kalmasham. Such a person becomes freed from sinful reactions. So this is 27. And yunjaneva sadatmanam. Such a person who engages in such a yoga practice, yogi vikata kalmasha. Vikata kalmasha means very simple again, freed from material contamination. Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham. They see Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham, Prabhupada translates there as constant touch with the Supreme. Okay, but please remember, so you could look at it either way. If you're a devotee and doing all this, then you're in touch with the Supreme Lord. But if you're not, if you're this Ashtanga Yogi only, as per this Patanjali and as per this discussion, Brahma Samsparsham means he's in touch with the soul. That's it. Okay, so you can look at it like that also. He's in constant touch with the Atma, Atyantam Sukham Ashnute. And in that also, he feels great happiness. Okay, so you can look at it at different levels. So Ramanuja mainly uses the level of meditating on the self. To say Ramanujacharya uses that level only. Prabhupada always talks about the Supreme, Supreme Lord. Okay, so that depends on how you're going to look at this chapter. But if you look at it from the general understanding of this Karma Yogi slowly evolving and starting to meditate on himself, then you can understand that he is meditating on himself, and thus in the contact with the self, Sukham Ashnute, he is achieving great amount of happiness. In this way, the first section of the 6th chapter, which was a big section, which is Yoga Sadhanam, has been concluded. The next sections are all very small, and in fact, there is a lot of purport to the next sections, which are very, very interesting. So we will spend a lot of time and we will go much slowly from next time onwards. But at this point, I would like to end. We just summarize by saying that we discussed today based on the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first 28 verses. Essentially, we were seeing about where Krishna is talking about yoga sadhanam. Sorry, yoga abhyasa vidhi, as Yamunacharya says. Yoga abhyasa vidhi means how to do yoga. Okay, and first 9 verses were a recap of the previous 3 chapters. Correct. Where Krishna is talking about Nishkama Karma Yoga, Krishna is talking about Samadrishti. We saw that verse, right? Sohran, Mitra, Udasina, Bandhu, Dvesha, Sadhu, Papeshu. How to see everybody equally. Then you can start meditating. And then we saw from verse 10 to 28, Krishna is talking about primarily meditating on oneself. And only once Krishna brings the topic of meditating on Paramatma, and which Ramanujacharya says he's bringing that topic because in order to cleanse one's sins, one has to meditate on Paramatma also, such a yogi. Even though primarily his goal is to meditate on himself, once a while he has to meditate on Paramatma so that he can cleanse his sins. But his goal is to be situated in the self. He is not still a Bhakta. He has not reached the Paramatma. He has not reached at that level. Okay, so this is like the yogi of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And then we saw all those points, right? External rules, how you sit, what kind of asana you have, how you constantly keep bringing the mind, how you have your daily routine, where you don't do anything too much, too little, all that aspects. And then finally, that whole section concluded with the benefit of this, how such a person is completely fixed in the self and is experiencing great happiness and pleasure. Okay, great happiness means you can't compare that with the happiness of the devotee, but till now, whatever happiness is there in the material world, usse jo zyada iska happiness hai. So this is how we are seeing yoga abhyasa vidhi. As far as devotees are concerned, we can take this section from the perspective of our chanting, our japa itself, where we can implement this, so many clues that Krishna has given for the yogi that bring your mind back, be focused, so we can remember all these teachings here because they're applicable to us as well, because daily even we have to meditate and try to implement it as much as possible. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? So we just take one by one. So yeah, I'll just unmute one by one. So you can go ahead. Balram.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So we like in 6.15. So there Krishna is mentioning Mat Sansthamam Adhigacchati.
Yes.
So he's talking about like reaching the supreme destination of his abode, Mat Sansthamam. So now, I've found this little confusing, because when you're talking about Karma Yogi who is doing Dhyana Yoga, then why this destination is mentioned here?
Okay, understood. 1 second. Just give me a second. I have that translation. 6:15, right? Just give me a second. I'll open that. Okay. So how Ramanuja translates this verses, I'm reading the translation in English. This translation is: the practitioner of yoga, as described, keeps focused his mind throughout the meditation on my form and has his sins destroyed and mind easily brought under control and focused on the Jivatma. Such a person attains the ultimate frontier of bliss, the supreme peace, which abides in me, that is Bhagavan. So basically the way he translates this verse is that Shantim, which is there, na, Mat Santam Adhigacchati Ga Shantim, Shantim Nirvana Paramam. That means that Shanti which is there is obtained in me only. Okay, so that means the Shanti means to be free from the 6 whips: hunger, thirst, sorrow, infatuation, old age, and death. This is possible only when one takes my shelter. Okay, that is how he is translating this verse. You could see it either way, but Ramanujara's translation is that this yogi also, who is primarily meditating on himself, he has to meditate on myself, on me, the Supreme, so that he can attain peace, which is only possible when one samstham, when one has one focuses on me. Otherwise, one cannot achieve the peace. Okay, so that is how he translates. But anyway.
And Roji, yeah, so I think this is fine. So what I got is that uh, that peace or that success which he has got is because of the mercy of the Lord
Yes,
only.
yes, yes. See, so Ramanuja uses this concept which all of us use also. We say that all processes dependent on bhakti. Bhakti is independent, but everything else depends on bhakti. That means even the yogi, the non-devotee yogi, quote unquote, even he depends on bhakti for his success. The karmi also depends on bhakti for his success. Jnani also depends on bhakti for his success. So everybody uses bhakti as a limb, but bhakti is independent. Okay, so the same concept we can see here. That means even though this yogi primarily may be meditating on himself, even such a person has to meditate on the Lord, so that he can succeed a little bit more. So that's what we understand. Does that make sense?
Yes, Guruji, yes. And also 6.24, again, I could not connect the flow. So though so it seemed like that Krishna is already mentioning. So that's 6.24. I'll just
Yeah,
read
yeah.
it. So one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination, faith, and one should abandon all material desires and control all senses on all sides by the mind.
Yeah, so
Uh,
Ramana
so
says here that 24 to 28, Krishna is again bringing the mind into picture. So if you
okay,
remember, we started with the mind, 6.5, 6.6, Bandhuratmat Manastasya, all those verses. We started with the mind, and Krishna is ending also with the mind only, 24 to 28. So he's again bringing the mind here. That's why I said in 24th verse, Ramanacharya says that again the mind has been brought because it is only through the mind you're going, with the help of the mind, you're going to achieve success in yoga. So that is why in 24, basically Krishna is saying that with the mind, you have to consciously withdraw all the senses from their sense objects. That is what Prabhupada's translation is also there. Control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Prabhupada writes there. So the mind, and then again 24, 25, वही चल रहा है वापस 25, 26. यतो यतो निश्चलति manas. So the point is, the whole description of yoga started in text number 5 and 6 with the mind, and in the middle from 10 to 20, actually 10 to 19, only 10 verses Krishna spoke on Ashtanga Yoga. Then 20 to 23, Krishna spoke on the benefits of Ashtanga Yoga. And then 25 to 28, Krishna is again saying that, hey, come on, ensure that your
mind.
mind is under check, like that.
Yeah, got it.
That is the concept.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Vaibhavanand Prabhu.
Thank you, Pruji. One thing is this painting behind you is very beautiful.
Oh, so this is actually embroidery. This is my father's work. This is embroidery. This is not a painting. This is
Okay.
actually threads. These are all threads, which under the sewing machine, my father has his art or whatever. So in his college days, he has done all these work. So yeah,
Extremely amazing to know, Pruji. It's an embroidery now.
it's an embroidery. It's not a painting.
Okay, thank you. Pruji, my question is that, all these descriptions in Vedic literatures, like Hiranyakashipu did so many years of tapasya, or, Vishwamitra did 60,000 years of tapasya. So these are not continuous, sitting and meditation. This is in between breaks, or Shaubari Muni going into water and then meditating. So this is along with uh, some breaks, or this is along with some kind of you ahar and vihar also. So so is it like that?
Yeah, good question. So I'm also curious on that. I would try to find out in any Acharya commentary what if they give some technical analysis of this. But at least in this chapter, Ramanuja, he very clearly says that here Krishna is not expecting one to do this Dhyana Yoga day in, day out. This is only for 2 hours. Brahma Muhurta is reserved for this, he says. During Brahma Muhurta, you do this, and daily you do Karma Yoga. So this chapter is like that. Now about those kind of yogis, it does seem that some of them did continuous. Like for example, if you see even Dhruva Maharaj, 6 months, he did some this type of yoga only. Of course, he was not focusing on the Atma, he was focusing on Paramatma. But fundamentally, he did this type of meditation only, correct? He was sitting, but there also, the Bhagavatam says that he used to eat something. If you remember in the Bhagavatam verses, it says first month he was eating fruits, second month, some leaves. So I forgot the order, but I think it was only the 6th month that he stopped completely eating and drinking everything. But in the first few months, he was eating something. So it indicates that there was some breaks in that. It doesn't seem clear from that it was literally continuous. So at least there we have an evidence. But about the other stories about Hiranyakashipu meditating or whatever, so it could be either way. We would need to see some commentary which describes more on that. Good point. I never thought in that direction, but yeah, it seems to be.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious to know about this because
Yeah,
so many descriptions comes like that.
yeah.
Another thing is that, do we, do the lifetime, reduces if one gets up little late, or how it is? I mean, because this Brahma Muhurta is very auspicious. So I have heard some, local speakers
Yeah.
who say that one should not sleep, and because the lifetime also reduces. And how the Westerners, all these Vedic, regulations don't apply to Westerners at all.
No, it is not like that. See, please try to understand. All these are rule based. If you take care of the body properly, you get benefit. Like once we were discussing about Japanese people, right? They live long lives. They take care of their body, environment. See, there is no one unique factor for that. Suppose if somebody gets up in Brahma Muhurta, but he sleeps very late at night, then he's finished. That is not going to save him, right? So, in fact, that is what happens with many of our devotees as well, na? Where they sleep late night and get up early in the morning. So, they may be getting up in Brahma Muhurta, but the other rule you are not following, that you have to sleep also. See, typically in these settings, after sunset, people would go to sleep in some time after sunset, which typically means like in modern times, like 8 o'clock, 8:30 p.m.
Hmm.
Then if you sleep like that, then getting up at 3:34 is very easy. Before all this light came, this electricity, people actually would sleep early, right? Even, yeah, that's a fact. So people would sleep early in life. So then it all made sense. So you can't just take one aspect of thing and say that, hey, how Shastra is not working like that. So I think it's a complete package. If you follow everything, then you have a long life. That is guaranteed. Does it make
Okay.
yeah.
And why does, for those who are not under the shelter of Sanatan Dharma,
Yeah.
why, they seem to not follow many details. Like we follow so many details, cutting nails on those days, this and that. And they seem to sometimes, outgrow from this various kinds of regulations.
No, they may not follow the details, they may not get self-realization, but whatever rules they follow, they get benefit of that, right? For example, the Europeans, the Japanese, etc. They typically so see, they may be eating meat, etc., which is there certainly. Which, by the way, I mean, even in the Vedic system, there were people who were of that category, right? Meat eater, fishermen, like that. So that part is there. But in that also, if you carefully see, not overeating too much, being regulated in their own way, they do follow that. And uska benefit unko milta hai. So please try to understand, everybody gets the benefit of whatever rules they follow, and what you don't follow, you don't get benefit of that. So they may not get self-realization because they don't meditate in the Brahma Muhurta. But because they may be following so many other rules, they may get all those benefits. Healthy life, all that they may get. Not every Westerner gets, that is also wrong. In fact, in America and many countries, obese people are too many actually. So because they don't follow rules, see, Prakriti is very clear. Prakriti is rule based. You follow rules, you get the benefit. You don't follow the rule, you don't get. Prakriti doesn't distinguish whether you are Sanatana Dharma, you're atheist or what you are. It has nothing to do with that. You follow the rules, you get the benefit. You don't follow the rules, you are penalized. So that is how Prakriti is. Prakriti is very dispassionate. See, we have to accept that Prakriti is like that. Prakriti doesn't like if I don't sleep at night because I am doing service to Krishna, I will still get headache na tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Prakriti is like that. Prakriti just is rule based.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand it. So we have to respect Prakriti. So this is also an important point. We have to respect Prakriti. So respecting Prakriti means we have to follow all the rules of Prakriti also, right? So whatever is the way we eat, sleep. So sometimes even in our, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but I'm just using this as an example. Like in our Charanamrit and all, sometimes, we may have kacha milk and, so many things mixed up, right? And I at least I remember nowadays I don't drink that too much because I've become a little conscious about it. But I remember in my initial days of Krishna consciousness, after every fasting, I would drink like liters of that Charnamrit. Okay, now if you carefully look into it, see, though the feeling is there that it is, of course, I wouldn't even drink thinking that it is the Lord's mercy or whatever, most of the time because we had fasted. So I would just gulp down 1 liter of Charnamrit like that. But if you consider from a rule perspective, it is not correct. No? You can't mix kacha milk with all those ingredients and drink like that. Fruit juice and so many things which are completely viruddha from perspective of rule. Okay, so maybe you can take 1 drop of Charnamrit in hand. That's as a respect to the Charnamrit itself. But you just can't gulp down liters of it and then think that this is the Lord's mercy, so nothing will happen to my body. No, of course the body will get affected because that is not that whole mixture of liquid is not a scientifically means I'm not talking material science, even from Ayurveda or from normal civilizational perspective, the right mixture of ingredients. Correct? You're getting the point, no?
Yes, yes. Just a last thing, Proji. Recently when Brahmachari in Panjai temple, he wrote an article that neo-Smartas are overtaking ISKCON, and the international character of ISKCON is being compromised, and lot of things are now coming into the ISKCON setup.
No, so please try to
Yeah.
understand this article was originally promoted by Kaunteya Prabhu. He is Jayapatak Maharaj's disciple based out of Mayapur.
Yes.
So please remember, it was promoted by him, which was later adopted by these people. And by the way, ISKCON ICC has taken a very strong action against him. And only today afternoon, they have banned his talks in all temples until this problem is resolved. So please remember, the very controversial topic, which is currently, as of the ISKCON leadership in India, it is banned. To say that ISKCON has become smarta and all that. No, the leadership doesn't accept it. So I'm just telling you that point as well.
Okay, so how do you see this? I mean,
no, there is no basis for it. I see it also the way, I mean, why smarta means smart? First of all, this smarta is not a bad word. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have done that. Again, please remember, there may be a couple of Prabhupada statements where Prabhupada spoke about smarta slightly with contempt. But please try to understand, you can't just take that 1 or 2 statements and make your entire understanding about smartha like that. Smartha means what? Smartha ka matlab kya hai? One who follows rules of smriti. Sometimes why we use the word smartha disparagingly is because if somebody is only following rules and is forgetting the purpose of Krishna consciousness, then that is bad. But following the rules per se, there is no harm in it. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself followed rules. Come on. He followed all the smartha principles, as in he was doing sandhya, right? 3 times a day. It's written in Chaitanya Charitamrita. At least 25 times it comes that Prabhu Madhyana kare. He was doing Madhyana, which you understand, right? In Sanskrit, Madhyana means the afternoon sandhya, which is that. So Mahaprabhu was following all the rules of Brahminical culture. So he was also smartha. So smartha means following rules of Brahminical culture. So smartha becomes a bad thing in our devotee context, which Prabhupada also used a couple of times, only when you are only following these rules and you have forgotten the spirit, like we say niyamagrahana. That means you're following the rules, but you have forgotten the purpose of all these rules only, which is to attain Krishna consciousness. Then there is a problem. But otherwise, smartha is a welcome only. I mean, as in Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharatra ke Vidim Vina Aikantika Harer Bhakti Rutpadeva Kalpate. What does Rupa Goswami say? He says that Bhakti, which is contrary to Shruti and Smriti. Smartha comes from the Smriti. Na? Smartha follows all the rules of Smriti literature. Swami says it is Utpad, it is disruptive to society. Okay, so why? So we need not create a conflict like that with Smartha.
Okay. The point is that they are trying to say that people are trying to do higher kind of things than Prabhupada suggested. Prabhupada never suggested so many regulations, and you unnecessarily keep on introducing new ones just because you are Indian and you have a culture. So that's their point.
Yeah, I understood that. I understood that point. So first of all, I told you that point itself has not been accepted by the leadership. All those who are promoting that point, they have been currently put on hold. But more importantly, let me tell you one thing. See, this sometimes this particular idea comes from this perspective that see, education of the Shastra you cannot stop your understanding of Shastra just between 1966 and 77, what Prabhupada spoke at that particular time. Are you getting my point? No? You cannot stop knowledge like that, saying that, see, Prabhupada had that limited time, he gave the highest thing, which we are eternally grateful to. We are following that process. All that is true. But if somebody can, progress more and learn more, why should you feel that? See, this whole thing comes from this thought also, that whatever Prabhupada did not speak for those 11 years, you must not bring it only. So this itself is a kind of a questionable thing, because why should you stop knowledge like that? Are you getting my point?
Yes.
So just like I told you, I gave you another example that in Ahmedabad or somewhere some years ago, when there was a Gurukul event, where there were many RSS people who had come to talk about education. So one of our brahmachari went with the Bhagavad Gita and showed it like stood up and said everything about knowledge is there in this book. It is a good sentiment where you feel that your guru gave you everything. But then there can be so many things about Gurukul system, etc., which Prabhupada was not, he was not a founder of a Gurukul system per se. Please try to understand. He was focusing on Krishna consciousness, which is the highest thing. But then there are, the cultural aspects of Gurukul, etc. Every aspect, Prabhupada must have said about you should have Gurukul, but you cannot just stop Gurukul knowledge just to what Prabhupada quotes about Gurukul are, right? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then if you try to learn from some things what our other people did, see, so that is when a Guru Sadhu Shastra, you cannot stop this pravaha of knowledge. You cannot do that. That itself is criminal. Okay, if somebody is compromising on Krishna consciousness for that, saying that you don't chant, instead do this, then that is a problem. But if along with your japa, your sadhana, if you are able to improve yourself in some aspect of life, what is the harm? Where are you becoming an enemy of anything?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Prabhuji.
Haribol. Yeah, who is that? Dinabandhu Chaitanya Prabhu's hand is up. Is that Dinabandhu Chaitanya Prabhu? Yeah, asked to unmute.
Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Yes, Prabhu. Pranam. Thank you for the, I think, very relevant discussion which we just had. So I have a different kind of question, related to what we discussed today. So, Prabhu, this is, interesting point that Ramanujacharya mentions, that we need some amount of Rajoguna to function in this world. Like, it should be in control. And but I'm just wondering, like, as you mentioned this point, like for someone like a devotee or a sadhaka in our society who's expected to chant 2 hours a day, or with that type of close to temple lifestyle, at least in the morning we are expected to. So how do you, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like if you chant too well, then so to function in this world, how like being in that, like while we're doing the sadhana, we are intense. At the same time, when we come out of it, we just have to maintain that Rajoguna. So I find it difficult to get that balance. If you can shed some light on that, Prabhu.
Yeah. Good point. It's interesting. Again, I am repeating the point. Ramanuja, what he says in that verses, he says that Rajoguna is Shanta Rajasam. See, Shanta Rajasam is the word in Sanskrit. So he says Shanta Rajasam matlab Rajogun ko nikalna nahi hai tumko, usko shant karna hai. So shant karna hai means pacify it. That means don't allow your Rajogun to become so much that you get dragged into, see, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, all these gunas, they have a positive and a negative aspect. Like Tamoguna's positive aspect is you can sleep because of Tamoguna. If suppose somebody says, I don't need only Tamoguna, then you cannot sleep at night also. So everybody needs Tamoguna. Okay, so that is why Shuddha Sattva. Without Rajo and Tamoguna, you can have only in the spiritual world. In this material world, your Sattva Guna has to be combined with Rajas and Tamas. Because without Tamoguna, even the sannyasi cannot sleep at night. 6 hours also he wants to sleep. Tamoguni lagta hai sone ke liye. Okay, but the wrong part of Tamoguna is there. The bad part of Tamoguna, so to speak, which is the procrastination, the laziness, and so on and so forth, right? So similarly, Rajoguna also has a positive aspect and negative aspect. The negative aspect of Rajoguna is attraction to opposite sex, enjoyment. Those things are the negative aspect of Rajoguna. Positive aspect of Rajoguna is you are able to do something in the world. Arjuna needs Rajoguna, otherwise how will he fight the war? You also need Rajoguna. We need Rajoguna when we go to the office. We are making money, doing all whatever we are doing. You need a passion. Okay, but Shanta Rajasam. Shanta Rajasam means the negative aspects of Rajoguna are out, but some Rajoguna is going to be there. And I don't think we have to worry so much that the Rajoguna will go away. I think at least that's not most of us problems, that it goes away completely. I think what sometimes goes away is the zeal to do things.
Exactly. Yes, Prabhu. That's what I wanted.
Goes away due to wrong understanding sometimes. For example, if it is emphasized too much that this kind of simple living which is there. Simple living is there, but sometimes the simple living, we confuse simple living with the killing of all the zeal to do something in the world. Okay, so that's a wrong understanding. Just imagine if the Pandavas were also influenced by this simple thinking philosophy, then they wouldn't do anything. Why fight a big war for simple living just to maintain body and soul together? Are you going to kill so many people and do all that? Not required really. So basically, I think that many times wrong conceptions conveyed through philosophy has a more greater potential to damage the good Rajoguna that you need to function in the world rather than our Japa per se. That is not going to do that. Japa will never do that. Japa will allow you to function in the world. It will not remove like that, at least not at our stage. Maybe someone who is very much advanced like Haridas Thakur, who has a capacity to chant 20 hours a day, he may be like that. But for most of us, it isn't like that. So I think that verse and that translation is relevant for all of us. You chant nicely in the morning and subdue the passion, which will not go towards material enjoyment, but you need it for your karma yoga. He says that, so that is important. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. The other thing was, you made a statement that I don't know whether I heard it correctly. I think you so you're answering thing about one who doesn't wake up in the Brahma Muhurta cannot attain self-realization. So did I hear that correctly? Or it seems like if I heard it correctly, it seems like quite a strong statement in that sense. Like,
no, I didn't say that. Vaibhavanand Prabhu said that. He was quoting from some lecture. But okay, whether I said it or he said it, the fact is that waking up before sunrise and sitting for meditation is considered important in all traditions. So that part is accepted. I think we have to accept it. So honestly, I'm also not at that level at this point, but yes, it's a struggle. But yes, one has to sleep early, wake up early, and try to chant in the morning hours. That is clear in all traditions, whether it is Advaita Sampradaya, whether it is Ramanuja, whether it is Gaudiyas. Everybody will tell you that the best time to meditate is before sunrise, 1 hour, so 1.5 hours. So that is uniform across all what shall I say, sampradayas and walks of thought. So if we are not able to do that due to our own limitations, I think it's better to be humble and work towards that stage rather than saying that is not important. No, it is important, without a doubt. Because see, I think all of us have experience now. We have chanted in the morning also, we have chanted at night also, we have chanted in the day also. We know that it makes a difference. If you can chant in the morning where everything is quiet and you can certainly, and the amount of the ability to concentrate is much more. Correct, no? If you sit and chant at night, it's actually very difficult to do that. So whatever Krishna is saying in the 11th and 12th verse, Suche Desho, where you need a secluded place. Secluded place is available only in the morning, even in your own house. Because daytime means your children are up, they are running around, and it's no longer secluded now. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Oh, Chakrapani, Krishna. Yeah.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, this subdued rajas, that is Shanta Rajasam.
Shanta Rajasam.
So I want to know some of the symptoms of that. If a person is having that tendency, how does he function?
He says that the symptom of that is one is not attracted to sense enjoyment, but one is able to function well in the world. So that is how he discusses that. That means, see, because in those verses, all that comes, na, your mind should not go towards sense gratification. See, the sense gratification is a problem. That means sense enjoyment, wanting to enjoy the senses.
Yeah.
Comes out of Rajasam. That is a negative effect of the mode of passion. But to do things in the world in Karma Yoga, for that also you need Rajas only, na? If you want to be a businessman. Like Arjuna, let us take Arjuna only. He's a fighter.
Yeah.
He has to get up in the morning and go and start fighting with Karna and all these people. He needs Rajas for that.
Yes.
So that Rajas he needs only. But when Arjuna contacts Urvashi, then he's subdued.
Yeah. Good example.
That is how he defines it.
Like, for example, even to construct a temple for that matter, you need Rajas.
You need Rajas. You need Rajas for everything. You need Rajas
Yeah.
for all that. But that Rajas is important. That Rajas is needed. So Shanta Rajasam means the negative effects of Rajas are now subdued. That's how he is translated.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhuji, I have one more question.
Oh yeah,
May I
please.
ask? So, one of the points you mentioned today, that Ramanujacharya, he mentioned that the yogi should focus on the faults of this world.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel that how much of this should be emphasized in our talks with our other people, because one of my devotee friend, he was sharing that in one of the DYS class he was giving, so he was talking about suffering in this world. Like we generally talk about birth, death, old age, disease, those sufferings. And the Samne wala fellow, he was saying that I'm completely happy. Why are you saying that I'm suffering? For 1 hour he was arguing, and this devotee was not able to convince him that he's suffering. So, so I want to understand what is our viewpoint in terms of looking at the faults of this world and telling others about the faults of this world, and rather than having an appreciation.
Fault of the word, Ramanujacharya says, that comes in the verse also. It is a duality, Dvandva. Dvandva is the primary fault in this world. That means everything is mixed. There is sukha dukkha, heat and cold. Right? Everything is mixed in this world. There is nothing like pure happiness here. So this, the yogi should be aware. See, please try to understand that the yogi is not aware and is conscious that this world has the problem of Dvandva. What is his motivation to sit and meditate on Atma? His purpose to sit and meditate on Atma is to get the pleasure of Brahman, Brahma Sukha, which is without Dvandva, remember. Brahma Sukha doesn't have any Dvandva in it. It is pure bliss, right? That is what this chapter is also discussing, na? 6th chapter. So many places, the verses it had come. Correct? So that is the fault of the world. The only fault of the world is this Dvandva. Now, this fault again, see, please try to understand. The understanding of this fault is not that you become inactive in the world. See, this we have already discussed before. आपको लोक संग्रह के लिए काम करना पड़ेगा ये प्लेटफॉर्म पे. Even though this world is the platform of Dvandva, you still have to work in this world only and contribute. So that part is already accepted. But when it comes to your meditation, understanding that there is a difference between the achievement of meditation and achievement in this world. For that, you should know this.
Yes, Bhuji, I think this point made it really very clear that a fault means Dvandva.
Yes, that is coming in the verses. वो verse में आ रहा है. वो जहाँ मैंने पढ़ा था ना, वो verse में है द्वंद्व. Dvandva means the word Dvandva is not there in this chapter, but it comes that sukha dukkha, that whatever. That means the duality. Duality has been spoken in this. The duality is spoken not only in that 2.14. It is spoken so many places in the Gita, repeated. Yes. So I think we can take a last question. Yes, Sunita Madani, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Hi,
Prabhuji, you mentioned that bhakti is independent of all these karma yoga,
Jnana,
yoga.
yeah.
So could you please elaborate on it? I mean, the practical aspect, and like it is said that bhakti includes all these yogas. So like,
Okay.
could you please?
Yeah. See, bhakti is independent as in, see, suppose if somebody wants to be a karmi means this is not karma yogi, please remember, I'm talking about a karma kandi. That means somebody wants to do a ritualistic ceremony to get sense pleasure or something. Even such a person has to take help of bhakti, correct? Like I gave a simple example, a person who does Ganpati Arati. He may be doing the Ganesh Arati in order to get benefits for himself in his world. But even he chants the holy name of Krishna, right? Hare Rama, they chant 3 times. Bhakti is there. That means everything depends on bhakti for their success. That means karma. I'm not talking karma yogi. karma kanda, jnana kanda. Right now we are talking slightly different here. Karma kanda, jnana kanda, yoga. This. So even Devata worship, this yoga, even though these directly their goal is not to obtain Krishna, even such people have to use bhakti to facilitate their growth in their respective domains of karma kanda, jnana kanda, or yoga path, etc. Okay, but the bhakti per se, bhakti per se is independent. No? That's the fundamental understanding. Bhakti is not dependent on any situation. All right, so bhakti is independent, as in it doesn't need these things for its support. Okay, so this is what I'm talking. Now in the Gita, now please try to understand. Bhagavad Gita is a book with its own psychology. Okay, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is what he's talking. He's not talking karma. He's talking karma yoga. Please remember, there is a difference between karma and karma yoga. What I said was earlier was karma depends on bhakti. Karma yoga means it's already connected to Supreme. Okay, so karma yoga means functioning in the world and contributing. Krishna has presented bhakti in the Bhagavad Gita on top of karma yoga. That means he's asking Arjuna, Krishna is asking Arjuna to become a devotee not by giving up his occupation of Kshatriya, right? On top of that, he wants him to do that. That is the psychology of this book called as Bhagavad Gita, which we are reading. Because in Bhagavad Gita, whereas Krishna denied that, technically bhakti may not need these things. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has kept bhakti on top of karma and jnana. Are you understanding? Karma and jnana, not karma and jnana, sorry. Karma yoga, jnana yoga. They're already supreme as come. Does that make sense?
So you mean to say that in independence, when you were talking about, was about karma kanda and karmis and all, not karma yoga and jnana.
So his definition is there, na anya vilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnano sheelanam bhaktiruttama.
And what does it mean when we say that bhakti yoga includes all these yoga and you don't have to do separate endeavors for that?
No, I didn't get your question. What's your question again?
It says that Prabhupada also says that bhakti yoga includes these yogas automatically, like we don't have to separate endeavors for these kind of yogas.
Actually, there is some problem in your voice. I don't know whether the problem is in my network.
Bhakti, like that. I didn't understand that actually.
Okay, I'm not sure if I heard.
Just a second, Prabhuji.
There seems to be a problem in the voice. So I'm hearing alternate words, but what I understood is, the relation.
Yeah, actually, are we now?
Yeah, better.
Yeah, so I was asking that when we say that bhakti includes all these yogas, does that mean that we don't have to do separate endeavors to perform all these yogas, and we simply do bhakti and it includes everything automatically? Like that was my question.
Okay, see, it depends on how you are defining this. When you say when we do bhakti, see, please try to understand. Now let's look at it shastrically. In our Shastra, in the Bhagavatam, wherever somebody was a devotee, unless they took sannyas or something, the karma yoga they were also doing that, right? Like if you see the gopis of Vrindavan, they are the topmost devotees. Okay, they gave up their homes and they went to dance with Krishna in the middle of the night. How many times? 3-4 times. That's all. All the other time, what were they doing? They were churning butter. They were taking care of their children. They were taking care of their family. They were selling butter. They were selling yogurt. They were doing all that. Correct? They were doing that. You consider any devotee in the Bhagavatam, whoever was bhakta, karma yoga was always there in their life, right? As in karma yoga, as in they were doing their duties now according to Varnashrama. That was never negated unless one officially takes the position of sannyas, which is very less. I mean, somebody takes sannyas, he gives up everything and he goes. But otherwise, as long as a person is in family life, which is 99.99% of all the devotees in the Bhagavatam also, they were all doing their karma yoga, right? Jnana yoga also they were doing. They were accumulating knowledge. If you see the Pandavas, when they were in the forest, continuously they were meeting various sages, Markandeya Rishi, this Rishi, that Rishi. They were kind of discussing various concepts of the Upanishads and whatever. hearing from them. So basically, the bhakti which was practiced by all the devotees we see in our scripture, it was never cancelling the karma yoga, jnana yoga part of life, because that was there only, that they had to do only. Okay, so because that is how the world is, that this you have to, so that is how Bhagavad Gita presents it. Okay, the point we are only saying here is that when you say bhakti is independent of karma and jnana for its success, that means even if somebody is not into all that, still the bhakti is competent to give success to that person. Okay, so somebody like Haridas Thakur is there, he may not be doing any karma yoga or anything like that. Okay, he's doing only devotional service, chanting so many rounds, etc. Right, so for him bhakti is itself enough to give all success, so that part is there. But in the context of a society, nobody was encouraged to not do their duties properly. It was never there, and that is why I'm saying in the Bhagavad Gita that is not there at all. The Bhagavad Gita as a book is very clear. Does that answer this point? Hare Krishna, I think I don't know whether we lost you. Okay, I think we lost her. She's not there in the meeting itself. Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you everyone for your patient hearing. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Hare. Thank you.